Jai Hind everyone. Welcome back to your English class. Today we will explore all the aspects of subject-verb agreement. But when I was writing this topic, I deliberately emboldened the word agreement, as you can see here. Now you might be wondering why I did this. But everything has got a reason. You know, the new education policy that is introduced in 2020 itself has proved that education is a very dynamic and an ever-evolving process, and it has been creating quite a buzz these days. Now, when I'm talking about agreement, what is agreement? If you go by the literal meaning, it just means that there are two parties or there are two factions and they negotiate terms and conditions amongst themselves. And that is generally to resolve a conflict. Now, when I was talking about the new education policy, we see that the subjects are largely becoming interdisciplinary these days. So to add to the all-inclusive, comprehensive aspect to this policy, I will just take a small example, or I will just cite an example from history. Now, the world history has witnessed certain treaties, certain political agreements, certain pacts and concords. Let's say, for example, the Treaty of Versailles, the Treaty of Paris, that is one of the oldest treaties and that which is responsible for the formation of the United States. And the Treaty of Versailles was signed immediately after the First World War ended, that is in 1919 itself. Now, why leave behind Indian history? Indian history has also come across pacts like the Gandhi-Irving Pact, where Gandhiji somehow tried to negotiate with Lord Irving, the then Viceroy of India. And he had stated very clearly that I would be giving up the Satyagraha campaign if you release the Indian prisoners from the jails, from your custody. And in fact, Lord Irving agreed to this particular term and condition. He immediately released the Indian prisoners and also did not prohibit the production of salt for domestic use. So we have seen that what is the commonality or the common feature between all the agreements, treaties or pacts that the history has witnessed. The commonality lies in the fact that there are two parties which are conflicting, which are in conflict. Now, to resolve that conflict, there are certain terms and conditions imposed by both the parties. And this applies even in grammar. Now, the grammatical terms and conditions lie between subject and verb. So, sometimes this subject-verb agreement has also been named as subject-verb concord in certain grammar books, or wherever you find this particular topic, you may find it by the name of subject-verb concord. Concord, if you look into the meaning, it means the same as agreement, right? So by now, you've understood what will this topic subject-verb agreement relate to, or what is it all about. Yes, it's a part of your grammar syllabus and mainly MCQ questions are asked from it. So when we are talking about subject-verb agreement, always remember that the terms and conditions that the subject and the verb tries to agree to, they are very simple in nature. Why? Because if the subject is singular, the verb following the subject would be singular. If the subject is plural, again the verb would be plural. So we have to understand three golden rules to resolve any such problem coming to us from the subject-verb arena, right? So let us come across those rules. The first one is, first you try to identify the subject and the verb of the sentence. The second, once you identify the subject, you have to closely examine the subject and try to determine what is the number of the subject. By number I mean whether the subject is singular or plural. Okay? Once you do that, you are able to come to the first term and condition as any other agreement, even in history, that we have come across. The first one is singular subject is equal to singular verb, while plural subject is equal to plural verb, right? So what we have to understand by terms and conditions is that subject could be of many types. It could be singular, it could be plural, it could be uncountable in number. So while we find Sam comes here every week, Sam being a singular subject is followed by a singular verb, comes. While in the second sentence or the second example, you find the plural subject, my friends, and that's why it is followed by the plural verb, come. So my friends come here every week. So this goes in for the plural subject and the plural verb. So you have identified the singular subject, that is Sam, and hence you follow it with a singular verb, that is comes. Okay, so we move on to the next. Two or more singular nouns or pronouns. So you see the singular nouns or pronouns is the singular subject. Okay, so when it is joined by and, okay, because and being a conjunction, it always tries to join, okay, two singular subjects, then it would obviously be a plural verb that would follow it. Like, for example, Ajit is a separate individual, I am a separate individual. So what happens is, I'm talking about two different subjects here. So two is never singular, two is always plural, right? So obviously, if the subject is plural, that comprises of Ajit and me, that means what happens is, the verb would also be plural. Similarly, you find the man and woman were determined to leave the city. So the man is the first subject, woman is the second subject. So together it sums up to two, right? And two being plural will go for a plural verb were. So here, why did I use this particular sentence intentionally or purposely is that it means that tense does not count. The number of the subject and the verb only counts in this topic. So even if you would have written the man and woman the man and woman are determined to leave the city. That means if you had used the present tense, then also your sentence would be equally grammatically correct. Alright, we move on to the third. That also deals with and. But initially, it was singular nouns and pronouns, that is singular subjects that we were talking about. Here we are talking about two different singular subjects joined by and, but both these subjects refer to one thing, refer to one person, or refer to one idea. For example, the horse and carriage is part of one vehicle only. Okay, so a cart or a carriage that is driven by horses is equal to one mode of transport. So you have to try to understand. Again, go back to the second golden rule. Close examination of the subject. So if you closely examine the subject, you would find that it is a singular subject because it is suggesting one particular vehicle only. For example, curry and rice was my favorite dish. So, curry and rice, they are served at one go. Like if you go to any Indian restaurant, they would call it a thali, okay, or a platter, right? So, but a platter is just one meal served, but it constitutes of several other edibles or eatables, okay, but otherwise it's a part of one dish, right? So when we are suggesting this oneness, one dish, one vehicle, or one mode of transport, one conveyance mode, okay, then what are we doing? We are trying to suggest one idea only. So the horse and carriage, though they apparently, okay, they outwardly look like two different subjects, but it actually means one, right? So whenever you find these kinds of subjects being joined by and, try to determine what is the number of the subject. Is it two different individuals altogether? So 1 plus 1, is it 2? Or is it just suggesting one particular idea only? Okay, so if it is suggesting one, it is singular, so it would be singular verb. Otherwise, it would be a plural verb, as in case number 2. Now we move on to the fourth point. Singular noun or pronoun, that is singular subject, plus another noun or pronoun, that is another subject, is equal to singular verb. Now look for words like with. Okay, I've underlined certain words. The ship with its crew was saved. Again, Kiran and not you has won the prize. So whenever you find these expressions like with, not you, together with, okay, all these expressions take in singular verb. Now, as well as is a very tricky expression. Why? I'll tell you one very simple trick to try to understand what is as well as meaning. Wherever you find as well as, because as well as is again a conjunction that will be joining two different subjects, that is two different nouns or pronouns, what will you do there? Always go for the first subject. Just overlook the second. If the first subject is singular, go for a singular verb. If the first subject is plural, go for a plural verb. So wherever you find as well as, always look into the first subject only. For example, you see here, note, two subjects joined by as well as is equal to the verb that agrees with the first subject only. Right? Here you find silver as well as gold. What is silver? Is it singular or plural? I think it is singular. So, I went for a singular verb, that is. Alright? Similarly, if it would be a plural subject instead of silver, then I would have gone for a plural verb. We move on to the fifth point. Two or more subjects, that is singular subjects, if they are connected by or nor, then it would be singular verb. Now here also I would like to explain another trick. And what is that trick? Just as in the previous case, you have found, or I have just instructed you, that wherever you find as well as, go for the first subject. For or and nor, okay, wherever you find or the word nor, go for the second subject. Okay, the second subject will determine what would be the verb. Okay, so it's just the opposite. For as well as, look into the first subject. For or and nor, look into the second subject. Let us find out how. Here you find either the cat or the dog has been here. So the cat is a singular, so in this case has. But in the second case, neither Harish nor his brother is to be blamed. So what is the second subject? His brother, right? So again singular. But look at the note portion. You have to be notified about one very important thing. That is, one of the subjects joined by or nor, if they are plural, if any one of these subjects is plural in number, then plural verb will be followed. Alright, that is, plural subject should be placed nearest to the verb. So which subject is placed nearest to the verb? The subject that is the second in number, that is generally closer to the verb. So the simple trick of looking into the second subject will actually give you the correct answer. Okay, so if the second subject is singular, go for a singular verb. Otherwise, go for a plural one. We move on to the sixth rule. Each, every, many a, anybody, nobody, either, neither, no one. If you find these expressions in the subject portion of the sentence, what will you do? You will always go for the singular verb. So if you find these expressions, okay, that which are written in black separately for your understanding and comprehension, wherever you locate these words in the subject portion, go for, blindfoldedly you can go for a singular verb. Alright, you do not have to determine. Okay, so locate these words, like understand which are the words that follow a singular verb. Each, every, many a, anybody, nobody, either, neither, no one. So many a man has ruined his life. You see, look at the verb that is used, singular verb. Each of the boys was given a pen. Every one of the hotels is full. Neither of the two plans was approved. So everywhere you find singular verb, because in every sentence you would find these expressions. We move on to the seventh point. Some subjects are plural in form but singular in meaning. Like, for example, I'm talking about mathematics as a subject. What is mathematics? It is singular because it is one subject only. So if I say mathematics is my favorite subject, I'm talking about one subject, right? What is the subject in the sentence? Mathematics, and that being one, I'm telling it mathematics is. That is, I'm going in for the singular verb. So here similarly, news looks to be plural, but is it plural? No, news is always singular. Similarly, the United States is just one country. Okay, the proper noun is singular, right? The United States has a president. Alright. Gulliver's Travels, though it looks like a plural subject, but it is one book. So Gulliver's Travels was written by Swift. Economics is a difficult subject. So if you look by appearance, if you judge by appearance, you would find economics looks like a plural thing because S is being added. Like for example, if I talk about aerobics, if I talk about mathematics, if I talk about economics, they look like plural, but they are again one subject, right? So always remember, some subjects are plural in form only. They look like that, they appear like that, but otherwise they are singular in meaning. We move into the 8th point, that is a very important thing. A collective noun. Collective nouns are always singular, right? Though the common noun that follows the collective noun is plural. For example, if I talk about a bunch of keys, okay, so the bunch is always singular, alright, because it is one group, one collection of keys, alright. So a collective noun that is obviously singular will always be followed by either singular or plural verb. Now you might wonder which one to use, whether to go for singular or plural verb. Now there is a small trick that you can apply here. I'll go with the examples first for you to understand it better. The crowd has gathered quickly. So when I'm talking about the crowd, I'm talking about one unit or a single body. Alright? So that is singular subject. But when I'm talking about the members of the crowd, the members of the crowd can't be one because number of people make a crowd, a group of people make a crowd, right? So when I'm talking about the members or the individuals of the mob or the crowd, we would definitely go for a plural verb. For example, the crowd has gathered quickly because it is a single body or a unit, but here you find the crowd were scattered in all directions. Can a crowd as a single body scatter in all directions? No, right? It's the members of the crowd who scatter in all directions or who have the capability to move in all directions. Alright? The crowd can't move. The members of the crowd can move. Alright? Similarly, we move on to the second example. The jury has introduced a bill or the government has introduced a bill. But when we are talking about jury or government, then as a single body, we go for a singular verb. But if we talk about the members of the government, if we talk about the members of the jury, then obviously jury is to be taken as a plural subject. What will happen in that case? The jury or government were hopelessly divided in their opinions. So the jury can't be divided in their opinions. It's the members of the jury who have different opinions and hence they are divided. They are not united. Alright? Similarly, the government can't be divided. It's the members of the government, the members of the parliament or the members of the government who are responsible for having different opinions or who are responsible for holding different opinions, and hence we can use the jury or the government were hopelessly, that is a plural verb would be used in that case, divided in their opinions. Alright, so you have to understand when it comes to collective nouns that are we talking of that collective noun as a single body or are we talking of the individuals present in that particular collective noun. Alright, in case of crowd, it is the members of the crowd or the individuals of the crowd, that is obviously plural. Again, when we are talking about the jury, are we talking about the jury as a body, as a single body, or are we talking about the members who are present in the jury? Okay, the members who consist, okay, or who are just the constituents of that same jury. So accordingly, you have to place your verb. Okay, if it's a singular body, go for a singular verb, and if it's plural, go for a plural verb. We go back again to the first principle. That is very simple. Now we move on to the 9th point. Plural noun denoting some amount or quantity as a whole. Alright, what do? We go in for a singular verb. It is quite often mistaken as a plural verb. For example, 100 paise. 100 paise is an amount. Though it is 100 in number, but again it is an amount, right? So whenever you find any sort of amount or quantity, go in for a singular verb. Like for example, 100 paise is equal to 1 rupee. 10 miles is a long distance. Okay, though it is 10 miles, okay, it appears to be plural, but again we are talking of some quantity or some amount, right, as in the subject portion. So if you find any amount or quantity that denotes a whole, you will obviously try to understand that it is the singular verb that should follow the singular subject. Again, you commonly say 15 minutes is left for the class to start. Okay, that is the correct usage. You can't say 15 minutes are left for the class to get over or something. Alright, because 15 minutes denotes some amount of quantity, okay, of the time, okay, or a particular period of time. That means it falls into the category of amount or quantity denoting whole. Alright, so 15 minutes is left for the class to be over. So if I give you certain erroneous sentences, now I think you might be able to correct those errors and write error-free sentences, and this is the objective of subject-verb agreement, okay, to write error-free sentences. Alright, now for writing error-free sentences, the subject and the verb needs to agree with each other. It has to be on the same terms. Alright, okay, so we move on to the last point for the class, that is, some nouns are singular in form but plural in meaning. It's just the opposite of what we discussed in point number 7. We were discussing that some subjects are plural in appearance, but in meaning, in essence, they are singular. Now we are just discussing the reverse. Some nouns are singular in form, but plural in meaning. What will you do in that case? Go in for a plural verb. Okay, it's the safest option. Go in for the plural verb. Now, for example, if I talk about 6 dozen, cost only 10 rupees. Okay, so 6 doesn't cost, it's not costs, okay, so we generally go in for a plural verb, as I said here. Okay, so some nouns, they look like singular. 6 dozen, 6, we are not saying 6 dozens, okay, like the way we are using news, mathematics and all that. Okay, so 6 dozen, do not misinterpret it as a singular thing, because just it looks like that. Do not go by appearance here. Try to understand, try to determine the number of the subject again. Okay, the second golden rule here. So 6 dozen cost only 10 rupees. Again, always remember, if you find at the beginning of the sentence, if you find the expressions like a lot of, most of, okay, these kind of sentences, a lot of work is left, plenty of work is left, some of the work is left, most of the work is left, okay, or has to be done. Always find these kind of expressions which have a lot of, plenty of, some of, most of. These kind of expressions generally take in singular verb. Alright, so always remember, if you find a lot of, most of these kind of expressions, you go in for a singular verb. That brings us to the end of the class. I hope the concepts are clear to you. If not crystal clear, again you can leave your comments in the comment box and further ask me in the live classes. Thank you so much.